Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and today we're continuing on with week 4 of the 1 hour a week of Marketing Your Practice or business plan. We've been focusing on creating an MVP plan for marketing, which is your minimum viable plan. And this week, the last one, is the week that fixes one of the biggest reasons practice owners struggle with consistent marketing. And it's not because you don't care, because you don't know what to say. It's because you don't have a plan that works during busy periods and slow periods. But over the last few episodes, we've been building this plan step by step. This whole series of lessons is about simplifying your marketing so it fits into real life. We focused in the week 1 of creating your one main article, your anchor content, and building a consistent marketing plan you can actually repeat every week and do some actionable steps every week to ensure you don't turn into someone who is always doing their marketing last minute without any purpose, or worse, not even doing any marketing at all. That is not what I want for you. This entire series is about giving you that simple, repeatable, consistent plan you can do over and over. And this week is about formatting and publishing the anchor content that you already wrote and scheduling that as a blog on your website, and also scheduling the content that you wrote and created for social media to go out online. It's all about setting your marketing up so that it keeps on going even when client work takes over and life gets busy. So week 4, we are not creating content this week. Just like week 3, this is all about taking what you've written and formatting it as a blog and social media content. Last week, we took what we wrote and created our newsletter and formatted the content for a newsletter. So week 4 is no more new content, no more writing from scratch, no more deciding what to post. Those decisions were made earlier in the plan. This week is all about execution and implementation and getting that very important, consistent new content posted on your website as a blog. We're going to dive right into formatting and publishing your blog post on your website. This is the first part of what we're going to do in this hour that we have in week 4. And this is a bigger task, okay? But I want to be very clear about this. The way that you formatted your article for the newsletter is not exactly the same way you're going to format it for the website as a blog. There's a few subtle changes that we need to make and some specific items to add to your article when you post it as a blog. The same way as we had some specific things that we did for the newsletter, like the subject line and a preview line. A blog is very similar in the way that it needs structure and specific formatting, especially for SEO and for your website visitors. Unlike your newsletter, we are now writing for Google and for search engines. This is where a lot of people will really get lost. They've got the article, but they actually never publish it and put it live on their website because sometimes it's overwhelming and unclear what they should do with it as a blog post. So I'm going to give you some easy steps to follow today so that you know exactly what you need to format and add in to a blog post to get it out on your website. And one thing I want you to remember, we are taking what we created already to make it functional and findable by the search engines and people searching for someone like you online. So when you take that anchor content article and put it on your website as a blog, Your job is to make sure it's easy to read, that it's clear what it's all about, and make it obvious what somebody should do as a next step. Plus, you need to fill it in with the elements that the search engines need to find it and help other people find it. And that's it. The formatting really matters because online readers scan before they read, and search engines are looking for code and clarity and structure. So we want to make sure that your blog post has everything that it needs. As you format your post, you want to look at things like keyword-rich titles and subtitles and an opening that pulls people in and headings that break up the content and spaces between sections and having some white space in there, links to other helpful pages on your website, images that you want to add in, and the biggest thing that most people forget whenever I do a review of a blog or an assessment, having a call to action at the end or even in the middle to tell people what to do next. Putting that blog on your website is often something people don't put a lot of value on. They think of it as more busy work or marketing that doesn't matter, but it is the most important part of all of your marketing because that's that consistent new content we're getting on your website for search engines to find. And that is something that's critical because the other people that come to your website, those visitors, also need good information. And if you're like most people that I work with, my clients and my students in my programs, more people come to them through their website than any other place. Whether they got referred by a friend or a therapist or a colleague or a doctor or came from an insurance panel or even online directories like Health Profs or Psychology Today. All of those places typically direct people to the website, and that's where they understand where to contact you. So this is why making sure you have that new content on the website so the search engines see that you're not just a static, out-of-date website and not an out-of-date business is so important. This is why your anchor content becomes more of a marketing asset for you than just an article that you wrote. And it's a marketing asset that is published where people are searching for you online. So part of what I teach people in my Thrive Marketing Academy is to follow a 10-point blogging checklist to make sure they include all the relevant items in their blog posts every time they put one out there. When you have something like this to follow, it just becomes second nature and a habit for you to do for each and every article you post as a blog. And this is one of the reasons some of my clients start getting more traffic, more consults, and more bookings because more people are finding them online in searches and reaching out. And they're finding them because they now focus their time on putting content where people are looking for them versus putting content only on social media. And this is why you should never ignore putting that anchor content article on your website. And just think back to your last 5 clients. Where did they come from? Social media? If you're like most of my students' clients, no, they find you online from Google or insurance panels or referrals, all of those places I mentioned earlier. Those leads typically get told by someone to come to you. They come to you via your website before they book a call or signing up. You want to make sure you're focusing your marketing on putting content where people are actually looking for someone like you. When you do that, you get more results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the 10-point checklist that I give to my clients in my programs, just so that you have an overview of what you want to include in your blog as you're formatting it. Now, there's more to this than I can teach in just an episode on the podcast here. I will have a spot where you can download this 10-point blogging checklist, but please understand that some of these items come through in an entire module of training. As you're looking to format your blog articles, there's a couple things that you want to make sure you do. At the very beginning, you're going to create a keyword-rich title and a keyword-rich subtitle. Now, as we said with the newsletter in the previous episode, the newsletter has a subject line. That's like the title for the article when it comes to newsletters. That is intended to get people to click and open the newsletter. A keyword rich title on a blog is there mainly for SEO reasons so that the search engines can find it, but also so that the search engines can match it to people looking online. And so that's why we also have a keyword rich subtitle. It's all about SEO and search engine optimization. So as you've created your anchor content and you came up with your title for the article, that's most likely going to be your title here for the blog because it's going to be typically created as something like 10 points to check for when publishing a blog. That would be a good title for a blog post. As you're creating your anchor content, part of what we created earlier were things like the titles and the subtitles as we went into it. Then when you have your article on your blog, you also want to make sure you have a hook at the very beginning, some sort of intro to the article that entices people to read more. This is something you're typically going to write and create when you're writing that anchor content. And then same with step number 4 on this checklist, making sure the main article has keywords in it. Again, this is for SEO, search engine reasons. We want to make sure that we're optimizing any content we put on our website with keywords so that the search engines know what our website is about, what we're about, what our services are about, and so that we're using some of those main keywords people will be looking for us for as well. The next thing that you want to make sure you do is you put in some images or other visual effects like formatting, so bullet points and lists and subtitles and bold, maybe quotes, anything that you can do to break up the text in the content. It should always support the content that you're putting in there, but it's just intended to keep the article from looking like a ton of words and that it's got some ways to break up the text. Then within any blog post, you always want to think, are there ways I could link to something else on my website? Maybe to another blog post, maybe to another page on your website. This is really good to do because it helps keep people on your website longer, which is something search engines are always looking for. So this step number 6 in the 10-point checklist is all about search engine optimization. If you can refer people to another article that you have on your blog or maybe to your services page, if you talk about your services in the article, that's a really good thing to do because it keeps people on your website longer, which for search engines is something they are looking for. If people stay on your website and consume more content to the search engines, it means you're a good website. So they see that as a positive for you. You always want to make sure that you have some calls to action in there. This could maybe be to sign up for a lead magnet, or it could be to book a consult. It's whatever you want people to do. And that's something a lot of people forget, as I mentioned earlier. People tend to forget that part of the reason that you have a blog there is strangers, new people are going to read it. You want to convert them to become a lead. You want them to sign up for something or sign up for a consult or reach out to you. So make sure you include a call to action. I also like to make sure at the end of the article, I have some sort of recap or wrap up. Maybe you can call it the moral of the story, whatever it is. But you always want to try and finish things off, tie it into the lesson, give people an overview of what, you wanted them to learn from it. That's where I typically put the call to action in as well. They often fit together really nicely. And then number 9 and 10 on this checklist are really more related to SEO. So search engine optimization elements is one of the things. Number 9 on this checklist are your search engine optimization elements. This will be your SEO title, description, and keyword. Plus, when you have a blog going on your website, typically your website's going to allow you to categorize it with some sort of categories. Typically, your website system is going to allow you to put blog categories on each article. You could have 2 to 3 of these main categories. And then it also allows you to put in tags. Tags are more like a few keyword phrases. As an example here, maybe a blogging category could be nutrition if you were a dietitian, and some of your tags would be more related to what the article is about. So maybe it's ways to stop dieting. Maybe it is how to, stop the emotional eating. Those could be different tags that you have. Again, there's a lot more to this. I just want you to know from this lesson that you should be looking at adding categories and tags to every blog post that you put out there, as well as a unique SEO title, which typically is your main title of the blog post. If you've created it as a keyword rich title, it can become the same thing. You just put it in a section on your website that is intended for an SEO title and description. So a meta title and description is what they're usually called on websites, so that they are set there in the back end in the code so that the search engines know exactly what this content is all about. The title is typically the title. The description is often the recap or the wrap up that we talked about. Sometimes it's the subtitle. Sometimes it's a little bit of the hook or the intro. You can usually get into a groove of writing that one sentence that you need for a description and putting it into your blogging system. And then number 10, the very last thing that is a critical item to include in every blog post is making sure that you're seeding your services naturally in the content so that people learn about what you offer clients. You hear me do it all the time in here. I talk about working with my clients, people in my Thrive Marketing Academy, people in my Thrive Coaching Circle. I talk about these all the time because they're part of my services. You always want to make sure that if you're going to use an example, refer to some of your services. And that's one of the ways that you can then have some of those natural internal links to other pages on your websites, like I mentioned earlier. If we were talking about your services, you could have a link to your services page. It's all very easy to do when you're thinking about it. Part of this, you use this blog optimization checklist when you are writing the content. So you make sure you're thinking about that as you write it. But also, once you go to put it on your blog, you want to make sure all these pieces are there as you format it too. And I do talk about these a little bit more in detail on episode 158 of my podcast. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for you as well, because those are the 10 items that I want to make sure that as you format your blog and you put it out on your website this week, that that's what you're setting up and doing. That should only take you about 20, maybe 25 minutes to do each week because you've already got the content written. You're just doing a few extra things. You've already made the images in week 2. You're going to add that image in. You didn't have to create it this week because you created it in week 2. That's how all of these weeks tie together. And that's why when it comes down to formatting and publishing your blog to go out on your website, you can actually do that in under a half an hour. Because then what I want you to do for some of your other time in this 1 hour of the week is step 2 in week 4 is to schedule your social media content in one sitting. I like to batch and block my work, definitely. And once you have that blog post scheduled to go out, the next part of the task to do is take the content you created for social media already. Remember, we created this in week 2. We're not sitting here creating all the stuff all over again. We're just literally taking what we created, copy and pasting it into our social media scheduling system, setting the day and time that we want it to go online, and hitting schedule. And so it's kind of like an assembly line here. We've got the content written. We're going to go copy, paste, set a date and time, hit schedule, copy, paste. Of course, we're going to add the images in that we created for them too. Set the time and schedule. So this time in week 4 for social media is not about posting online. It's not about chasing likes or comments. It's about visibility over time and making sure that you have consistent content going out on your social media over time. We repurposed that main article as the catalyst content. We took your anchor content, created that catalyst content. So we created the content for social media. We created the newsletter for it. We've got it on the blog post there. Scheduling on social media allows that one article to keep working for you without you having to think about it every day. And if you've created some of those blog promotional posts that we talked about, that's going to make sure that your scheduled social media content is going to help you bring more website traffic too. Because if people read those pieces of content and click the link and take the action that you created, that's going to bring more people to your website. They come to those blogs, they read something, they get something good out of it. You had a call to action in it. You had a link for them to do something more. That's how you create new leads, new consults, and get more people reaching out. The reason that you want to make sure that you sit down and do this scheduling in a batch or a block of time is so that you make sure that you get that consistent content out there on social media too. When you sit down and schedule your social media content to go out over a period of time and do it in one sitting, you basically take away any random acts of marketing there and you become consistent with your marketing. And that marketing is allowing you to stay visible even when times get busy and client work takes over. This is why following this system is so critical and why it has helped so many people stay very consistent with their marketing because they've scheduled it. They've had a plan. They've made sure that they've thought about what they want to do. There's a strategy. There's a plan behind everything. There's a purpose behind, and then they've blocked time to get it done. We've scheduled the newsletter. We've scheduled the blog. We've scheduled the social media content, and it's all going to be published over a set period of time, whatever time you decided was what you wanted to do for your business or your practice. And it's all of that that creates the consistency. This is why all of these different activities happen over the 4-week period, is so that you can be as consistent as possible with your marketing. And this one is critical because it is the one where we're getting the content posted on our website as a blog post. Then you schedule your social media content, and you can do that in about 20 minutes as well. And guess what we have left now at this point? We've got about 15. The last part of week 4 is very easy. Spend some time connecting and engaging online with people again, following that NICE system I shared with you in episode 170. Networking is connecting and engaging. So you've scheduled your blog, you've scheduled the social media. Now you're going to go online and connect to people. It's intentional connection is that what we're doing here. You're replying to comments, you're responding to messages, you're leaving comments and sharing some of your own tips. And that's where you spend the last 15 minutes of this hour in week 4. If you do need a reminder of how to spend that 15 minutes of your networking time, definitely go back to listen to episode 170, where I walk through how to do that 15 minutes and what you should be doing within that time. And remember, this week, we didn't have to create anything new. We're just taking the content we already created and we're scheduling it and publishing it and formatting it in a way that's going to help us in the best way possible. And that's the last hour of our marketing plan following that minimum viable plan I've been teaching you with this series of articles. Your action steps here from this lesson are to get out there and make sure you take your anchor content that you created already and take the social media content that you created already. And number 1, format a little more in detail and on your blogging area in your website and schedule and publish it as a blog post, making sure to follow that 10-step optimization checklist I have for blogging. And you'll be able to download that from a link in the page on the show notes. So wherever you're listening in, look down there and you can get that link to download that checklist. That way you can make sure you're formatting it so it's easy to scan, easy to read, guides people what to do, and speaks to the search engines and lets them know who you are and what you're all about. Make sure that you're including all of those elements, including internal links and calls to action and images. everything you need to format that blog post so it's as effective as possible. Then I want you to make sure you schedule the social media content you already created. So you created content, you created images. Now you spend some time, about 20, 25 minutes, and schedule it to go out for your cycle of content, whatever you decided at the very beginning was going to be your cycle, how often you put your marketing content out there. And then spend 15 minutes engaging in networking and connecting with people online. And that's it. That's your full hour for this week in week 4. And that is the end of your lesson for today. I hope you've been following along with all of these weeks and all of the different lessons in this series. I will have links in the show notes to go back to each one that you can connect to. And this is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off, thanking you for tuning in and listening to my advice and my tips to help you market your practice. And remember, to thrive in practice or business means staying visible even when life gets busy. Having a simple and easy to follow plan in place will ensure you avoid that panic marketing or doing no marketing at all. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.